A peace settlement to end the six-year Syrian civil war will require compromise by all sides, including the Assad government, Vladimir Putin has said as the presidents of Iran and Turkey arrived in the Black Sea resort of Sochi amid some of the most audacious Russian diplomatic activity in decades. The summit between the three powers, all deeply involved in the conflict, is designed to pave the way for a settlement likely to leave Syria's Russian and Iranian-backed president, Bashar al-Assad, in power within a reformed Syrian constitution. It follows the near collapse of the Syrian opposition since Moscow's armed intervention in 2015 and the military defeat of Islamic State in all of the major towns and cities that were under its control. The militants in Syria have sustained a decisive blow and now there is a realistic chance to end the multi-year civil war, Putin declared as he hosted Iran's Hassan Rouhani and Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Sochi. The Syrian people will have to determine their own future and agree on the principles of their own statehood. It is obvious that the process of reform will not be easy and will require compromises and concessions from all participants, including of course the government of Syria. Putin hosted Assad in Sochi on Monday and extracted a more emollient tone than normal. He insisted on Wednesday that Assad was committed to a peace process, constitutional reform and free elections. Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin in Sochi on Monday. Photographed via Zoom or Wirex Shutterstock, the Russian leader also held a frantic round of telephone diplomacy with other world leaders including Saudi Arabia's King Salman, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Putin urged Iran and Turkey to start a discussion with him on the reconstruction of Syria. Given the colossal scale of the destruction, it would be possible to think together about the development of a comprehensive program for Syria, he said. He claimed military de-escalation zones had reduced the levels of violence and hundreds of thousands of refugees were returning home. The three-way summit endorsed his plan for a Syrian National Dialogue Congress to be held in Russia in December. The meeting is intended to help frame a constitution for an integrated Syria, including the terms of presidential elections in which Assad would be entitled to stand. But in a sign of the difficulties ahead, Erdogan is insisting Syrian Kurds are excluded from the Congress on the grounds that the Kurds are linked with Turkish Kurdish groups that Turkey says are terrorists. Syrian Kurds have been instrumental in the defeat of ISIS as part of the US-backed Syrian Democratic Forces. Erdogan was once one of the main backers of the splintered Syrian opposition but is now primarily focused on what Turkey sees as the Kurdish threat on its border. Rouhani said the grounds for a political settlement had been laid, but he argued it was unacceptable for foreign troops not invited into Syria by the government to remain in the country, a reference to US troops in the northeast of the country. Separately, Israel is demanding that the Iranian military presence inside Syria is reined back, especially near the occupied Golan Heights. The UN Special Envoy Staffan de Mistura will be briefed on Putin's plans in Moscow on Thursday. Simultaneously, Syrian opposition leaders are meeting in Saudi Arabia to choose a new negotiating team and platform for unsponsored peace talks in Geneva that are due to restart on the 28th of November. The reconstitution and expansion of the negotiating team has already led to mass resignations by prominent Syrian opposition figures including the former chair of the High Negotiations Committee, Riyad Hajab. Those who have resigned complain that the international community, especially Russia, is trying to force them to accept that Assad can remain in office despite his brutal tactics in the civil war, including the undocumented use of chemical weapons. They also claim Putin, despite his denials, is undermining the UN peace process in favor of a separate peace track with Russian-selected delegates to the National Dialogue Congress. De Mistura told the opposition delegates they could instill a new dynamic into the Geneva talks if they could agree, a cohesive, representative, strategically wise, effective team that reflects the diversity of the Syrian society and is ready to negotiate without preconditions, in the same way as the government will be expected to do. The flurry of diplomatic activity underlines the degree to which the US and the EU have been sidelined from the process.